Lately, I've been having a lot of fun playing with the newest cards from the upcoming set Shrouded Fable on stream. Shrouded Fable is a mini set that is due out in August, and it's going to be the most recently released set at this year's World Championships. Even though it's just a mini set, it seems like it's going to have a pretty big impact on the metagame. And two of the strongest cards from this set are Dusclops and Dusknoir. These guys have the Cursed Blast ability, which allows you to knock these Pokemon out and then place damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Dusclops' Cursed Blast allows you to knock out the Dusclops and then place 5 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. And Dusknoir's Cursed Blast is just a stronger version of that allows you to knock out Dusknoir and place 13 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. The Cursed Blast ability might not immediately jump off the card at you, but what this ability allows you to do is just take control of the game. You can go behind in prizes with Cursed Blast to unlock cards like Counter Catcher, or make it so that you're using Iono more effectively to limit your opponent's hand size. You can use Dusknoir's Cursed Blast to knock out a Pokemon on your opponent's bench while using an attacker to knock out their active, just kind of decimating your opponent's board. This is really going to be a powerful card, and I think that there are a lot of different ways that you can utilize these abilities. But one of the most interesting lists that I've seen floating around is the Turbo Dusclops Lost Box deck. This deck doesn't play Dusknoir at all. It just plays Comfey, Sableye, Cramorant, and a 4/4 Dusclops line. This deck is really wild in that you don't actually play any Colress's Experiments either. You just send Dusclops to the Lost Zone by using its Cursed Blast ability and knocking it out. And when you knock it out with a Lost City in play, you get to send both the Duskull and the Dusclops to the Lost Zone. With a 4/4 Dusclops line and a Hyper Aroma in the deck to help you find them, it's possible to get a turn 2 Lost Mine. Combined with a bunch of Cursed Blasts, you're going to be spreading a ton of damage onto your opponent's board, and in some cases, completely wiping out their strategy before they have a chance to set up and play the game. This list that I had seen really piqued my interest and seemed like a strong way to play Dusclops, and some players were even saying that this might be the secret deck unveiled at this year's World Championships. Well, with all the hype and speculation, I think it only makes sense to sleeve the deck up and give it a try. On stream today, my friend Joe and I ran a bunch of reps with Clopsbox against top-tier meta decks to see how it fared. And in today's video, I'm going to discuss the results and show off some highlights from stream to talk about the strengths and the weaknesses of this new deck. Before we get to the games, though, let's hear a word from my sponsor, Dragon Shield. Most people know that Dragon Shield makes high-quality sleeves and accessories for their favorite tabletop games, like the Pokemon TCG. But did you also know that Dragon Shield has a mobile app that makes it easier than ever to catalog your Pokemon TCG collection? The Poke TCG Scanner by Arcane Tinman allows you to quickly and easily scan any card in your collection, track its value, and even translate it into your language of choice. With the new social features, you can even add friends and see their collections too. I love using the Poke TCG Scanner to keep track of my most valuable cards and see what my collection is worth. Download the Poke TCG Scanner in the App Store today and start cataloging your own collection. Huge thank you to Dragon Shield for being a continued sponsor of the channel. If you're shopping at dragonshield.com, make sure to use code TRICKYJIM at checkout to receive 5% off your order. Now, let's take a deeper look at the Dusclops deck. Before we get started, I want you to give me your first impressions. This Turbo Dusclops Lost Box deck, does it seem real to you or does it seem fake?
It seems fake but I want it to be real. I think that's like, before we play this game, that's how I'm feeling going in. I think it's a super cool idea, but it just seems like there's so much that you like need to go right, and like so much that like could go wrong.
Guardy, even though Guardy's a deck with a lot of smaller Pokemon, you're not stressed.
Not at all. I think with the unless you really do have like a big early pop off where you're like pracking like multiple like Gengars, Dusclops. I don't know where I got Gengar from.
No, they're at least ghosts.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Holy smokes, Joe, this deck is broken. I mean,
wow. Okay, well when you draw like that, sure it is.
Yeah, it's the gas, bro. It's just, what more do you want in a Pokemon deck?
This was the first set that I played with the Lost Box Dusclops deck, and I was impressed. Just look at what I was able to do on turn 2.
I'll play Hyper Aroma.
No!
Hyper Aroma allows me to search my deck for 3 Stage 1 Pokemon and put them into my hand. Dusclops number 1, a Dusclops number 2, and a Dusclops number 3.
Oh, the humanity.
And I will evolve all 3 of my bench Duskull into an army of Clops. Clops box is a thing. It's happening. It's happening. For my next trick, I'll put I'll put Lost City into play. Cursed Blast. I'll put 5 damage counters on your bench, Curlia. And you take a prize. This guy goes to the Lost Zone. That's right. Use my Cursed Blast again to give you a prize. Send 2 more to the Lost Zone. And I'm going to put 5 here. Cursed Blast one more time and put 2 to the Lost Zone. And I'll put 5 on that one. So that is 8 cards in the Lost Zone, turn 2. Then I'll Flower Selecting, putting myself to 9. And then switch, Flower Selecting, and send Buddy Buddy to go to 10. Psychic to Sableye, play switch.
Oh, God.
Haven't supported yet. I'll play Professor's Research to discard my hand, draw 7.
All that with what do you even like respond to, you know?
Okay. And yeah, it's pretty cool, I guess. So I've got 10 in the Lost Zone. This is turn 2, and I'll Lost Mine. So I'm gonna put 3 on this Curlia. I'm gonna put 3 on this Curlia. I'm gonna put 2 on this Ralts. That's 8, and then 9, 10, 11, 12. 4 on the Radiant Greninja. And all of these, actually, they all go to the Lost Zone as well. So yeah, you don't get to play with those anymore. And I'll take my 3 prizes.
Well, I think that might be GG. I think that might be yeah, we'll concede there. I gave it a valiant effort, but
let's freaking go. Yeah, that was absolutely disgusting.
That was so brutal.
All 3, I mean, 2 Curlia and a Ralts all sent to the Lost Zone on turn 2. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
Now, if the first time you ever play with a deck, you get a total board wipe, it's going to be pretty difficult not to be impressed. Next, Joe and I tried playing a set against a Turbo Roaring Moon EX deck, which should pose some problems for the Dusclops Lost Box deck, because the Dusclops Lost Box deck is really built to prey on smaller Pokemon like Ralts and Charmander, but when you got a bunch of big basic Pokemon just taking knockouts every turn, that is a little bit more difficult to deal with. Joe and I ended up splitting this set 1-1. I won the first game we played because I was able to blow up a Dusclops and use Counter Catcher to bring up a Squawkabilly EX and then knock it out with Cramorant, and Blood Moon Ursaluna EX was the perfect closer. In the next game, I prized the Blood Moon Ursaluna EX and really had no chance. I did get the impression that the big basic matchups for this deck are going to be pretty tough. You do have the Blood Moon Ursaluna EX, but at the end of the game, by the time you use Blood Moon Ursaluna EX, your opponent is just 1 knockout away from winning the game, and against these big basic decks, you're usually going to need that Blood Moon to do a little bit of extra heavy lifting. We decided to skip a game 3 against Roaring Moon because I was anxious to see how the Dusclops deck would perform against Charizard EX Dusknoir, a deck that I consider to be the best deck and a front runner from our upcoming formats, and I really expect big things out of Charizard Dusknoir at the World Championships. And unfortunately, the Turbo Dusclops deck was anything but turbo. I went second with the deck in the series, and that felt really bad. Joe was able to evolve up Charizard EX and Pidgeot and take some quick knockouts, while I kind of fumbled around and struggled to find Dusclops early on in our game. And when this deck struggles to find Dusclops, everything kind of falls apart. If you prize too many Dusclops, or if you don't find your Hyper Aroma, it can be really tough to get enough Dusclops in order to put pressure on early. And since this deck doesn't have Colress's Experiment in it, there's no backup plan for getting cards into the Lost Zone. So if you don't pull off the Dusclops Lost City play, you're just kind of stuck doing nothing. And that's what I ran into game 1. Game 2, I was feeling excited because I went first, but I opened a dud hand and wasn't able to Carmine. I wasn't able to find anybody Buddy Poffin or anything like that. And then Joe was able to set up consistently and start taking knockouts, and I kind of quickly scooped up the cards. I think the lure of a turn 2 board wipe is, of course, really powerful and something that's going to get a lot of players excited. However, I don't think that the game designers really messed up that bad. They didn't create a totally broken deck. The Dusclops Lost Box deck is a little bit inconsistent, and without a card like Level Ball to search out Dusclops consistently, it's tough to get enough Dusclops into play on turn 2 every single game in order to execute the strategy. This list here is built to do one thing and one thing only. It is built to try and blow up 3 Dusclops on turn 2, send them all to the Lost Zone, and then get a very quick Cramorant or Sableye to spread damage and overwhelm your opponent's board so that they can't play the game. It's not going to matter if you give up 3 prizes with Dusclops if your opponent can't play the game. But if your opponent does get to play the game and you don't blow up the Dusclops early, then you're not going to be able to play the game, because the Dusclops Lost Box deck doesn't really have a lot of versatility. When the whole deck is designed to give up 3 prizes, you don't really have any real comeback potential at the end of the game, because you've already expedited the game a few prizes just by using the Curse Blast ability. I definitely think that Dusclops and Dusknoir are some of the strongest cards in the set, but I'm just not totally convinced of the Lost Box Dusclops deck. I think that it's too inconsistent, and I think that it's too narrow in its game plan, where a more versatile Lost Box deck, like the version that Andrew Hedrick used to win the North American International Championships, has a ton of comeback potential and isn't totally narrowed in on trying to wipe the opponent's board on turn 2, as fun or funny as that is. So I don't think that Lost Box Dusclops is the secret deck for this year's World Championships. I don't think that the deck is very serious at all, but it is kind of funny to wipe your opponent's board with it if you pop off. Now, of course, this is just a first draft list, and these are just my first impressions of the deck. There are some tweaks you could make that would maybe make the deck a little bit more sustainable in the metagame. You could add Colress's Experiments to allow you to have a more consistent game plan if you don't find all of your Dusclops on turn 2. You could add TM Devolution, so if your opponent is actually able to evolve up their stage 2 Pokemon, you don't just kind of lose because your opponent has too many big Pokemon in play. I do think that there is an inherent, inescapable issue of building your whole deck with the idea that you're going to feed your opponent multiple prizes in order to destroy their board state. I don't think that that's just a great and successful strategy. I think that Dusclops and Dusknoir are best suited when paired with a big attacker that doesn't give up prize cards easily, like Charizard or Dragapult or something like that, and used in combination with those big Pokemon to take a higher degree of control over your opponent's board and strategy. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching the video. Y'all take it easy and have a good one. See ya.